On April 20th, 2010, 6 gay rights activists chained themselves to the fence in front of the White House protesting the fact that President Obama has not repealed the don't ask, don't tell policy for the military. You probably didn't hear much about this particular incident because the Park police rushed in, cleared all the reporters out, and blacked this out. They didn't want anybody knowing that you had these 6 gay rights activists chained to the White House, embarrassing the president. But this raises a serious question. These people were willing to go to jail, get an arrest record for what they believe. Would you be willing to go to jail for what you believe? As a constitutional attorney, I've defended many people who have been arrested, gone to jail for their First Amendment beliefs. They consider it a badge of honor. Over the years, many. But as I look at the polls and I see how Americans are upset by the government, they moan about it. 80% of Americans don't trust their government to do what is right. Over a third of Americans believe that the government's going to take away their rights. The question I have as I look at these things, and I look at the Tea Party protesters that are willing just to stay within the easy bounds of politics where not much is gotten in terms of solutions. Why is there so little resistance like these 6 gay activist protesters? And this comes at a time when you have prominent left-wing thinkers, leftist intellectuals like Noam Chomsky, Naomi Wolf saying that a fascist government could come into being even under the Obama administration. They're not happy with what's happening. They're seeing something very, very troubling, which again raises the question, is there a time when you rage at injustice? Well, Martin Luther King certainly thought so. Martin Luther King was willing to get arrested. He was willing to go to jail. It was 47 years ago that he sat in the Birmingham jail, Birmingham, Alabama, and wrote his famous letters from a Birmingham jail. Shortly thereafter, he marched into Birmingham, Alabama, fighting the segregation policies there, using children as young as 6 years old as part of the march. He got roundly criticized because dogs, snarling German shepherds were shot at the kids. Some kids fell and were bleeding. The cops were swinging billy clubs. Fire hoses were shooting streams and knocking people back, breaking their ribs. Roundly he was criticized for this, but he didn't back up. He said, hey, don't worry, they may be in jail now. He talked about 250 kids being in jail, but we're going to keep coming. We're going to keep coming. We're not going to stop because we want justice and we want equality. Martin Luther King was a true radical. He understood that you have to take direct action sometimes, and he called it disruptive, nonviolent, militant resistance. Here's what he had to say in an article he wrote that was published after he was assassinated. We need to put pressure on Congress to get things done. We will do this with First Amendment activity. If Congress is unresponsive, we'll have to escalate in order to keep the issue alive and before it. This action may take on disruptive dimensions, but not violent in the sense of destroying life or property. It will be militant nonviolence. So King understood you could not rely on politicians to get meaningful things done. What it took is citizens being involved in First Amendment activity, getting out involved in their free speech, and when government doesn't listen, practice civil disobedience. That's what Martin Luther King taught. Sadly, the movements we see today that are so-called movements of change pale in comparison to what Martin Luther King argued for and what he did. Remember, he changed the world. Let me quote, as I'm ending this segment of this vodcast, from his letters from a Birmingham jail. He was called an extremist, and this is how he responded. But though I was initially disappointed at being categorized as an extremist, as I continued to think about the matter, I gradually gained a measure of satisfaction from the label. Was not Jesus an extremist for love when he said, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you? Was not Paul an extremist for the Christian gospel when he said, I bear in my body the marks of the Lord Jesus? And Abraham Lincoln, when he said, this nation cannot survive half slave and half free. And Thomas Jefferson, when he wrote, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. So the question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists will we be? Will we be extremists for hate or for love? Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice or for the extension of justice? It's been nearly a half a century since Martin Luther King penned those excellent and beautiful words. Unfortunately, we're in dire need of creative extremists today if we want to see some solutions, some good solutions, and have our government protect our freedoms.
We're willing to be beaten for democracy, and you misuse democracy in the street. You beat people bloody in order that they will not have the privilege to vote. You beat me in the side and then hide your blows. No, I don't need to leave. Here comes the register to vote. Hey, everybody on the rest. Let's all go.